Hello everybody, welcome to our 2 days Migration Center webinar with the title Save up to 80% in time and 60% in costs when migrating content to OpenText Documentum. Before we start, let me do one quick slide of housekeeping. Please note that all attendees are muted during the whole session. Any upcoming questions can at all times be entered into the GoToWebinar questions panel. We will collect the questions and answer them in a dedicated Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Please also note that this webinar is being recorded and we will share it with you after the session. All right, before I hand over to our first speaker, let me first introduce our speakers today. Starting will be Florian, our Director of FME Products, and our live demonstration today will be conducted by Mike, our Senior Consultant. And with that being said, let me hand over to Florian, our first speaker.
Hi, welcome everyone. Thanks a lot, Mark, for the introduction and the housekeeping. So as Mark mentioned, my name is Florian, so I'm responsible for the product business at FME. And today I will guide you through the presentation to the slide deck, and we will touch a couple of different topics. First of all, I like to introduce a little FME a little bit. So for all who are not aware about FME, so we will give you some details about FME Group. And then we will get into the topic of today's webinar. So we start with a short overview about our migration portfolio and migration center. And we will talk about a short case study and how this particular customer saved cost and time during the content migration to Documentum. And then, as Mark mentioned, so Mike will give us a short demo about the product itself. And at the end, we will have some information for you about our migration service portfolio and the Q&A session at the end. So let's start with some details about FME Group. So FME was founded in 1995. So at the moment, we are above 280 employees worldwide with close to 30 million euros revenue. We have offices all across Germany, Romania, and the United States. And we help our customers in digital transformation, especially for the life science and industrial manufacturing industry. But also we have plenty of customers in, for example, banking, finance, insurance, aerospace, and so on and so forth. So our consultants are able to help you with consulting services, conceptions, development, and of course, we also provide maintenance and deliver products to our customers. We are mainly focused on enterprise content management systems, business intelligence, cloud computing, social collaboration, and we also help our customers with custom software development. So, and especially for our migration portfolio, we developed a product called Migration Center, and we help our customers here to reduce cost, manage the risk, increase the productivity, and fasten the go live of ECM applications. And we do that with our product and services, which is made for complex migration and consolidation scenarios. So, and we also believe that we can help our customers to save costs and project and time during the project. So, but we will see that later on within the short case study, which we would like to present today. So, but where you can use Migration Center for? I mean, we have a couple of different use cases which we address, especially for OpenText Documentum, and this also includes Documentum D2 and Documentum D2 for Life Science. So we address mainly 6 areas. So the first area is the classic migration projects. That means, for example, migrating legacy OpenText content server to the newest version, or onboard documents and content to a cloud solution. So that's all the classic migration scenarios which we address. So then we also provide a couple of use cases for consolidation scenarios. Here we are talking mainly about the consolidation of repositories. So that means Documentum or D2 repositories, but also technologies. So that means we help customers, for example, in case of mergers and acquisition, we help customers to reduce the amount of technologies or platforms for enterprise content management, which they usually find themselves after a merger and acquisition. So we have also customers to extend the platform. So usually our customers, the customer starts with one or two divisions and then introduce Documentum, for example, in those two divisions. So later on, they want to let's say, to extend the platform within the enterprise. So we can help customers here to onboard documents from file shares or simply from legacy or third-party products. We also have customers to replace old technologies, for example, IBM FileNet or some other technologies. And also we help to archive or decommission applications or retire applications. So we can do that for multiple systems. So that means doesn't matter what kind of systems you have in place. So we are able to, for example, to decommission the applications to OpenText Documentum, but also to OpenText Info Archive, for example. So and then we have a set of different other use cases which we address. So that's, for example, the test data management. So whenever you implement an ECM application, it is very helpful to have some real data for the acceptance test, for example, to test your new application. So we can help with that during your project. But also we provide, for example, time schedule batch import. So that means we can fully automate the whole import process on a kind of time-based, let's say, batch import. But also we can publish documents from different systems or to different systems from OpenText Documentum. For example, if you have some SOPs, so standard operation procedures in place, which you need to share with other, let's say, employees within the enterprise. So whenever such document, such an SOP is final, we are able to publish these documents to several platforms like a portal, SharePoint portal or something like that. But why should you use Migration Center for all those, let's say, use cases? So first of all, Migration Center is really 100% out of the box, and it's not just a product, so it's a real platform. Why I say platform? Because first of all, it comes without programming and scripting effort, and we provide more than 180 different migration passes for multiple platforms. So it's not just Documentum, or from Documentum to Documentum, or from FileShare to Documentum. It's also from SharePoint, Alfresco, and many other systems to the Documentum platform. So we have a real, let's say, a proven technology. So we have done thousands of projects at about 500 customers worldwide. We have a lot of experience in migration services, but also in building migration products. So we are almost 15 years on the market now, and we have our customers to execute migrations without any downtime. So that means whenever we do migration or whenever you do migration with Migration Center makes sure that the daily business procedures or business operations of your users are not affected by the migration. So and for that particular, let's say, USP. So we have several, let's say, several capabilities which supports you to, let's say, to do a migration without interrupting any operations. So, and within our product, we have a transformation engine, which allows you to transform all your metadata, folder structures, access rights, etc., and map it to the new system. But I will give you more details about that one on the upcoming slides. So, and what is also very important, where we're really proud of, is that we are also fit for highly regulated systems. So at the moment, we have about 80% of the top 10 and about 60 to 70% of the top 30 life science companies using our technologies. And usually they use Migration Center within highly regulated systems. So Migration Center is also fully scalable. So that means we are able to perform very large, high volume migrations, and together with our professional service organizations, but also with our partner ecosystem, we are able to support you on nearly every continent worldwide. And Migration Center is also very flexible and simple price model. So you can purchase the product, so that means you can purchase the perpetual license, or you can also just lease the product for, let's say, for 12 months for one single project. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the overview, or let's say the architecture of Migration Center. So Migration Center mainly consists of three main modules. You will see that later on in the demo as well. So it's, first of all, we have a Windows client. This will be replaced by end of this year with the web client, but at the moment it's still a Windows client, which is the control center for all your migration phases, jobs, processes, and activities. And there's just one client needed, no scripting, no complex XML files are needed to configure your migration, your migration process. So then we have a central migration center database in the middle, which includes the business logic and especially all the performance critical processes, like, for example, the transformation of metadata, you can imagine. So if you have millions of documents you would like to migrate, and you need to do some let's say transformation during the migration process, so you need a lot of performance to really do that, to get this job done. So, and finally we have the job server, and the job server is the component which runs all the export, or as we say, scan jobs, to extract the metadata and the content from the source system, but also it contains the import jobs, which imports the documents and the new metadata to the target system. As I mentioned, so we have almost over 180 different migration passes available for several platforms, and as you can see here on the figure, so we have a couple of source connectors, like we support the whole Documentum or the whole OpenText stack. This is not just including Documentum, but also Content Server, eDocs, eRoom. We support Microsoft, Outlook, SharePoint, doesn't matter if it's 365 or SharePoint Online. So everything is supported at this point. So we also support IBM, for example, IBM FileNet, but also we have a very powerful IBM Notes Domino connector, which allows us to migrate nearly any kind of Lotus Notes Domino database through Documentum. But also we support Alfresco, CSC First Doc, or DXC First Doc, file shares, and we have a generic, very powerful generic SQL database connector, which allows us to connect to nearly any kind of SQL database compliant or SQL compliant database to extract data as well as documents. And there are a couple of other, let's say, interfaces like XML, Excel, CSV, and we have also a huge bunch of different, let's say, project solutions which you can also benefit from. And this list is continuously growing. So we, for example, at the moment, we introduced a new connector for Viva and so on and so forth. So, and also on the target side, as I mentioned, so we support Documentum, D2, the old Documentum Compliance Manager, XCP, Info Archive, but also OpenText Content Server, and a couple of other platforms. So the beauty, or one of our USPs of Migration Center, is our predefined migration approach. So when you use, or let's say, when you use Migration Center for the very first time, you have just to learn this process. So, and you can use that process in any kind of migration. Doesn't matter if it's from Documentum to Documentum, from file system to Documentum, or from SharePoint to Documentum. The process is always the same. So it starts with the analyze and extraction phase. So that means we will connect through the system to the source system, extract all the information we need for the migration, and we can, in that phase, analyze all the content, all the metadata, access rights, structures, relations, and so on and so forth, to prepare the upcoming migration. The second phase is the organization phase. So you can imagine, if you have millions of records, it's very difficult to find one transformation model for all your records, because the document types are totally different. It could be an invoice, but it could be also a concept or some engineering documents or something like that. So all those documents typically has a different kind of metadata set, so a different context, and you need to define your transformation rules based on this special sets of documents. And within the organization phase, you're able to build your own sets based on many different selection criteria. This could be, for example, marketing documents in one bucket, or sales related documents, or the documents from the last 5 years. Doesn't matter. So you can build your structure or your batches, or as we call migration sets, individually, so based on your requirements. If you're done with the organization, the next step would be the transform and map process. So that means here you build your transformation rules. You map your metadata, you transform your metadata. And when I say transform, I mean, for example, you can extract information from a folder path. You can simply map an old value to a new value, but also you can use many different functions to manipulate your metadata to the needs for your target system. So if you're done with this transformation and map phase, so the next step would be the validate phase. So within the validate phase, usually we test all the metadata before we commit or before we import the metadata to the target system. So that means we also simulate the transformation rules and the mappings. So that means during the migration process, you will see immediately the results of your transformation model. So, and once migration data detect some errors or some problems, like you can see here, so there's a field called date, and there's a value, it's ABC, which could never be imported into your target system because it's a date and not a string. So migration data will detect that automatically and shows you an error before you import the data. So, and you can easily go into the next step, and that's the correction phase, to, for example, set default values for missing attributes, or just simply create a new rule, a new transformation rule to generate the necessary value for an attribute. So if you're done and all the documents are almost in the validated state, so then the last step will happen, and this is the import. So we will import then the documents into the target system with all the new metadata, with all the new folder structures, relations, visual documents, etc., etc. So, and as I mentioned, so this process is always the same. So if you learned it once, you can use it for any kind of migrations, and you have not to use, let's say, or not to learn how to use other tools. So there's just one platform for all your migration needs. So just to summarize shortly, our main capabilities. So first of all, as I mentioned, we have this powerful transformation engine in the middle, which nearly allows you to manipulate metadata, and it's so powerful, like a programming language, for example. So we provide several functions which can be combined to a rule to build your new values for your metadata. So migration is fully scalable. So that means we are able to manage very large data volumes. So you can scale all the components within your network. You can do it on virtual machines. You can do it in the cloud. So it's up to you. So, and as I mentioned, so we also have the simulation and test, so the validation phase. So that means we simulate the transformation. You can share this information with the business owners of the documents, for example, to discuss, for example, problems, or to get the, let's say, the approval for the import. So all this will be done within our product and without committing the data to the target system. Then also we have this predefined migration approach. We are able to provide delta migrations. So that means that's specially made for reducing the downtime during a migration. So that means we can build delta sets and migrate the deltas waves, let's say, into the system. So that means the users can use the source system as long as they wish. So without being interrupted by, for example, let's say setting the system on read-only or something like that. So everything is supported here as well. As I mentioned also, we are fit for regulated or sensitive environments. Everything will be locked within our software. So there's a special history database which logs all the operations which has been done on a single record. So that means, for example, the source attributes with the source IDs and the target attributes with the target ID, and it's very, let's say, it creates a kind of traceability. So that means you can exactly see where the document came from, what was the set of metadata which has been used in the old system, and what are the new metadata and where the document was stored within the new system. And then we have also a capability called in place, upgrade or update and migration. So that means you can also update your system without moving the documents from one to another system. So that means, for example, you have a document type within your Documentum system, and you would like to modify the metadata and change the object type for a certain set of documents, for example. So you can do that with Migration Center because you can easily, let's say, analyze the system, manipulate the metadata, and update the system again without, let's say, changing the object ID and without moving the content from one to another storage system. So, and last but not least, there are two parts left. So first of all, so we have a new capability. It's an auto classification capability based on artificial intelligence. So it's a supervised learning. It's a supervised learning algorithm which allows you to create new metadata, new context based on the content itself. So you can give Migration Center a set of training documents, and automatically Migration Center will learn how to tag or to set the attributes for different kind of documents. And whenever we have some let's say, or whenever you have systems in place which we don't have in our out-of-the-box list for our connectors, so we have the open connectivity architecture or the API and framework around our product, which allows us, our partners, but also our customers to build your own connectors without changing the heart or the core of our product. So with that, I will just have a short look, or let's have a short look to one of our customers. It's one of our customers, for example, they are located in the United States, and the goal for that customers was to migrate engineering operational documents from several file shares, but also from other systems like SharePoint and OpenText Physical Records Manager into Documentum D2. This customer used a homegrown tool, and this, caused a lot of headaches because it took very long to migrate the documents, and there was one other issue with the performance because the tool affects the performance of the system itself. So that means the users were not able to work with the systems as expected. So, and for that reason, has replaced this homegrown tool with Migration Center, and that was able to accelerate the process about 10 times than with the homegrown tool. So that means they increased the productivity, and also they could follow all the compliance and legal requirements they had. So the target platform, as I mentioned, was OpenText Documentum D2. And the volume at this case was about 3 to 4 million documents from the file share, and another set of documents from SharePoint and from OpenText Physical Records Manager. So how does it look? How can we save time and cost during an ECM migration project? So this is, for example, a really high level migration, or let's say project plan for the introduction of an ECM system. So typically it starts with kind of conception and planning phase. So then you set up the Documentum environment, you configure everything, you customize your Documentum environment maybe. So, and then typically you start building your scripts based on frameworks or whatsoever to migrate the data. And you need to test, of course, those scripts. And this is very static. So it means when you build your script, you have some, let's say, change requests from the business owners or from the departments. So then usually you need to change the scripts, test it again. So, and this is very time consuming at this point. And then also during the content migration itself. So when you move the data, it might be that you need a lot of time because there were some mistakes or some problems with connections, with the performance, and so on and so forth, because this is just based on a homegrown or individual script. So, and then the last two steps are the acceptance test at the end and the go live. So this is the migration, or let's say the project plan for a common, let's say, high level ECM project. So with Migration Center, so we can help you to reduce the conception and planning phase, because we have a lot of best practices in place. The performance metrics is available before you start your migration. So it means you can test your performance and you can plan your migration and your project along with this information. So you know exactly how long, for example, your whatever 5 or 10 or 100 million records are needed to migrate to the target platform. So in the next step, of course, I mean, to set up the enterprise content management system or Documentum and configure and customize Documentum, so we cannot help really with our product. So, but there is no need to build your scripts, because Migration Center is out of the box. You can just configure it and you can immediately start your content migration. And because of all the simulation, all, let's say, validation features we have implemented within our product, you can also reduce let's say, the time you need to migrate the content to the target system, because it's really product-based migration and it's not based on scripts or something like this. So, and also because of our tests and our validation phase, we are also able to reduce the amount of let's say, the time you need for the acceptance test. You can communicate with the business owners before you're migrating documents. You can make sure that all the documents are tagged or got the right attributes after the migration. And you can do all this before you're committing the data, as I mentioned. So, and this all these different kind of capabilities and approaches we implemented in our software, yeah, allows you to save about 60% in cost and about 80% in time during your ECM project, especially for the content migration part. Okay, so now I will hand over to Mike. So Mike will give you a sneak peek into our product, so a quick demo. And today's demo is related to OpenText Documentum. So that means we would like to show you how to migrate from one repository to another and manipulate the metadata, transform the metadata, and handle the whole migration process.
All right, thank you very much, Florian, for the great presentation. All right, today's demo is a very brief overview about the Migration Center, a sneak preview, basically, because in like half an hour, I cannot show you the whole product in a very deep manner, right? But today, I want to show you how to migrate from Documentum to Documentum. And actually, I use the same repository for the demo because I didn't have the other system up and running, but that's not an issue at all. With Migration Center, you can really migrate from basically anywhere where we have a connector for, or even the database connector can be used, to everywhere where we have a connector for, of course. Okay, the Migration Center here is installed on one virtual machine. So let me quickly show you very briefly. Here we have the Migration Center client, that is one component. Then we have one job server installed on that machine as well. And we have an Oracle Express version, I guess it is, installed on another server. Okay, so what I want to do is I have an OpenText Documentum here, and I want to scan the customer projects cabinet, which has some folders and subfolders. And then in those folders, there are some documents, right? So I want to scan that folder here, or that cabinet actually, and I will migrate it into the same repository into another cabinet. All right, let's go to the Migration Center. So when you start the Migration Center client, as Florian mentioned, we are working on the web client. So in the future, you will be working with the web client. But this client here is still very, very useful, let's say, very stable and robust, a really good tool to handle the whole migration. And as Florian said, it's the only control center or you know, the only point where you do the configuration and also the metadata analysis and transformation and so on. So basically everything is from scanning to import, as Florian showed you the phases. So once you connect it to the Oracle, the first and maybe only configuration technically wise you need to do is to add a job server to the Migration Center ecosystem. And that's easily done with clicking on job servers, and then you give it an IP address or a computer name, and then it will tell you if that job server is running and available. So a job server means it is like running in a Windows machine as a service, and on a Linux machine as a daemon. It runs into the background and it will do all the work for you, right? The scanning, so the extracting from the corresponding source platform into the migration center, and then the ingesting or importing, so it gets the newly transformed metadata and the content from migration center and imports it into the target system. So that's really done in the background. The client is like only there for the configuration and then for viewing of the status and all the things. But the work is done in the background by the job servers. Okay, once you added one, you can actually start the migration. Those job servers are actually the scalable unit, right? So if you can work with one, you can scan and import with one job server and do all the necessary tasks in parallel. But if you want to speed up the whole migration, you can also install as many job servers as you like and divide the work on different machines. Normally, the bottleneck in terms of performance is always the target system most of the times. All right, so a very brief introduction in the Migration Center client. So actually we see the hot toolbar here, which has scanners, migration sets, importers, jobs, and job servers and schedulers. So job servers we already have seen. Jobs is an overview panel where you see all the tasks which are currently running. And then we have scanners, migration sets, and importers, and that's basically the way we want to go, right? We want to scan a system or documents from a platform. We want to put it in a migration set, which is our transformation and attribute mapping unit, so to speak. And then we have the importers, which imports the documents. So let's go ahead and click on scanners. Here you already see some pre-configured scanner. So a scanner means like it's a configuration for a specific connector, right? To create a new connector, just to have it seen once very quickly, you basically give it a name, and then you choose the adapter type. So that's basically the connector or the corresponding platform you want to connect to, right? And if you choose one, as an example, the file system, the next one is you choose the job server, which you have pre-configured in the system, which should do the work. And then you have populated parameters or a populated list of parameters, which are really related to, most of them are related to system features. Right? Can exclude folders, exclude files, scan extended metadata from the file system, and so on. Auto-computed checksum, which we have in many adapters or connectors to make sure that the content integrity is successfully integrated into the system later on. So we use the MD5 checksum to compare it after the scan and after the import, for example, but also to detect duplicates. All right, and if you choose another connector, of course, you have different parameters. So that works in Migration Center all the same way. So no matter which source system you connect to the Migration Center, it is all like viewed like this. It has different parameters, but once you scan a source system, it's basically neutralized data in Migration Center. So from there on, we can transform it and then put it into any target system because we have that huge transformation and mapping engine. Okay, let me quickly open my pre-configured Documentum scanner. So actually, I did not do too much here. I choose our job server localhost to do the job. Then I entered some credentials and the repository to scan. And I entered the scan folder path customer projects by also defining the document types, which is the FME project document type. Let me quickly show you the other parameters here because we're dealing with Documentum today, or my demo is. So we have also the option to use a DQL string to really define a query to select or scan and extract a certain scope of documents. But there you're very flexible, right? And then you have all the features like we support renditions and versions, export only the latest versions, virtual documents, and even the audit trail can be migrated from Documentum to Documentum. Okay, I won't go into detail for that right now, and I didn't tick them for the So it's a very easy demo, let's say. And last but not least, let's say we have the export location. And this is important because this is in a folder or a network share, typically in a project where the content, the extracted content is stored temporarily to Migration Center to pick it up later on. So when we scan a system, we basically create a snapshot. So we extract metadata into the Migration Center database, and the content is stored on that particular file share here temporarily. So once you did that configuration, you save it, and then it's saved here, right? You can change it at any time or copy it over and create different scanners and so on. But yeah, once you're satisfied with it, let's say you can make it run with click on a button. You give it a description, and now it's running in the background. So at this time, I could just close the Migration Center client, and the job server will do all the jobs in the background, as I said. Okay, let's click on the history button here. Let me arrange the windows a little bit like this. So we have the history. It's just running. It will run like I have 2,000 files in that repository, I guess. So it will run some, or not even a minute, I guess. But while any job is running, you can click on the jobs panel, and that's also very, very useful feature in Migration Center. You see rough progress bar in percentage here, or not a bar, but the percentage. And then you can, at any time, you can pause or even stop a job, like a scan or an import, right? And this could be done because the system is I don't know, or crashed, not up and running anymore, or you maybe did some mistakes there, or the user or the end users are complaining about the performance of the corresponding platforms or ECM systems, because it's getting slow if you use many job servers to really speed up the migration. It could be somehow slow. So at any time, in an emergency, you can just stop the scan or pause it, or an import. And the beauty is here that the Migration Center will really keep the track of every document, of every status, like in an individual matter. So that means when you just stop it, the whole thing, you can even restart the job server then, and the Migration Center will make sure that it will really go on where it stopped last time and only process the document it hasn't been processed before. That's also for the Delta feature, an important thing, let's say. So once the job is finished, you don't see it here. It disappears from that panel, and you see we have 1,760 objects scanned, finished without any errors, and we have a time here. So let me close the scanner window, and maybe quickly introduce you to the our metadata grid window. So this is a typical grid which you see when you're dealing with metadata in Migration Center, right? So here you see all kind of attributes from Migration Center. So when it has been scanned, or where the content is located temporarily, and the ID source system. And then we have also all the attributes which we have scanned from a Documentum or from any other system. So you see many different attributes here. So that's also when you do transformation rules and validation, you can see all the values and also errors and those things into such a grid. So the beauty here is when you want to communicate the results. So let's say you want to say, okay, we have just scanned the Documentum or that on that cabinet. You may tailor it down to your convenience to only show a certain attributes. Let's click just some of them. So you can exclude and include columns, so you have a better view. And this view can be exported to a CSV file, and then you can put it into an Excel file to really report, to send it via email, or to show it to other key users or end users or project administrators, just to say, okay, this is the metadata we've got from the source system, and maybe we can work with that to create transformation rules and also to create the target metadata set, as an example, right? So at any time when you see such a grid, you can really do that exporting. So you always can communicate the data with everyone who is involved or responsible for making and taking decisions, right? Okay, at this point, we have scanned the data. It is now inside Migration Center in the database and on the content store. So I close the scanner region completely, and then we can go on with the migration sets. So migration set is migration set is basically a unit which includes a certain scope of documents. So you can put one file scan in one mixset, and then that mixset gets transformation rules. But you can also divide different file scans in different migration sets, or vice versa. That you divide one file scan or scan in general, and divide it into several different mixsets, which can have then individual different transformation rules. So mixset is, or migration set is like a working unit where we really put some rules on and then get that package, let's say, processed, transformed, validated, and then imported. So that's what Florian said a little bit with a process or a step-by-step approach, where you really can do it step by step, but also set by set. So as an example, you can put all the marketing documents in one mixset, or you can use any other type of filter criteria to do that, right? So to create a new mixset, you just click basically on new, then you have that view, you give it a name, and then you choose the actual type, which is basically the path, right? Where do I come from? Where do I want to go to? And that allows the migration center to know the technical important information, let's say how to store documents in that particular system and to which importer can it be assigned. And once you choose a path, you go to the next tab, which is a file scan selection. And here you will see then all the particular scanners from a Documentum scan. And you also see how many available objects it has. So sometimes you can have you can assign objects into, as I said, into two different mixsets. So at this point, you would see if there's a scan which still has available objects. Okay, once we, this is our demo scan. So we want to assign it to the mixset. And the next step could be, but I will not do that in this demo, but it could be to exclude objects by values, where you have distinct list of attribute attribute names and also distinct list of attribute values. So for your, like, very easy, you can just exclude all the objects which have a certain value in common, and so you can use those objects for another mixset, for another process, or with other transformation rules. I will not do that today here, but it's very easy. And also you can set up advanced filters, and this really allows you to create every kind of document scopes you really like. So you can use any kind of source attribute which is coming from the scan, combine it with every kind of operator, and then even with an and/or connector. So you can imagine you can really build, let's say, complex where conditions to really have only the documents you really want in that particular mixset. Okay, once you're satisfied, you click on select objects, and now these objects are locked in that mixset. So that means they cannot be processed twice or again. So it really helps you to not make any errors, or scan the document objects twice, and then you have twice the amount of documents in the target system, right? So Migration Center really helps you to control the whole migration. You will not lose any information, and you will not process anything twice. Okay, then, once we are in the mixset here, this is the overview about mixsets. And where, we want to go from unprocessed to transformed, over validated into imported, and maybe we end up in partially or errors, right? So partially imported means there's one object imported, but maybe a relation or a relational object is not created yet. So that means partially imported will be solved after the next run, basically. Errors is clear, so we have error numbers, so you can look into the errors. It could be a transformation, validation, or import phase. Migration Center really covers you not only from the phases we saw, also it covers you after the import. So even after the import, if you have any error, like 50% of the documents went in and 50% did not, you just see the errors in Migration Center and you only handle the 50 error documents or 50% error documents. So as I said, you will not lose any information, but also you will not lose the work you've already done and successfully imported objects. Everything will be keeping track here by Migration Center. Okay, to do that, to go to transformed and validated, we need to have transformation rules. And so let's have a quick look to the transformation rules editor. I already prepared that one, but basically I clicked on the generate rules button, which will do a one-by-one mapping more or less. So it will create the rules for you for each source attributes which the scanner has collected. So that means we have all the Documentum attributes here, and in each rule, these are the rules, we have one function which is a get value function, which is just getting the value from the scanner. Right. Okay. So yeah, if you need to change that value because the 1-to-1 mapping is not enough, let's say you need to do something else, we offer a variety of functions. It's like Florian said, a little bit developer near, let's say, but it's still, you can click it together, right? And you just need to do some logical things here. But with those functions, normally you really reach the desired attribute result set or attribute mapping at the end. So you can use split string, regex substring functions, get path level functions, and concatenate strings. So you can merge attributes, split attributes, or split attributes values, and so on and so on. So our transformation engine is so strong, you can basically imagine when we have so many connectors from really different source and target systems, really need a strong transformation engine. And so to speak, this engine allows you to do everything you need in terms of metadata transformation. Okay, let's imagine we are satisfied with that. Let's just save that one. Okay, we can see object type. It's all the original information, basically. I just changed one rule. So once you have set up the rules, which is 1 by 1 in this case, I click on apply transformation, and now it will be transformed in the background. So that in this time, not the job server is doing the work, but the database layer. So that's very, very fast normally. So when it's transformed, you can have a look to the transformed objects, and you again see such a grid. So now after the transformation, you can still, as I said, export the data into a CSV file to communicate the data. So to speak, you say, okay, this is our transformation mapping we've done. Is that correct? And you get confirmation or approval, and then you can go on with the migration itself. But if that's not what you want to, I think what you wanted to have here as a result of the attributes, maybe we change the department attribute very quickly, just to give you a feeling about how quickly you can change something in Migration Center when it's not correct at the end. So basically, department is business services. Maybe we need to change it. So we go into the transformation rules. We go into the department, and here I get the value from the old from the scan basically. So I delete that one, and I just enter a new get value function, and I put a get user value in here. So I just put business as an example for all the department, for all documents in that mix set and the department attribute. The value will now be business. So that's it. Right, and then I also changed one more thing, which I didn't show you before, just as an example for a more complex function, and also that you see that these functions can be several and they relate to each other. So I don't want to overwhelm you, but just that you have seen such a function block here. And what I do basically here is I change the folder path. So I mix or replace some folder. Basically, I change the order of a folder with another, right? So you will see that in the repository afterwards. But so I get just path folder level 1, 2, 3 basically, and then I concatenate those again in a different order. And that's all I did here, just to see something has changed in the new import basically. Okay, but now we change the department, and I show you the DCTM object link. So that's the folder, the target folder where the document will be stored. That's it. So we press the reset all button, and then we apply the transformation again. And then you see the department attribute has changed from business services. We have entered business here, and you see how quickly that can be done, right? So once you have, let's say, a result, you can simply doing that by creating some transformation rules and like pushing or clicking some buttons, and then you can communicate or even see what you get, right? And then communicate that and really quickly change or reset the previous made transformation, change values or the transformation rules, and then click a button again once you're really satisfied with your data set or metadata set here for the target type object type definition. Okay, so yeah, let me close that view, and then I will do the next step. I will not explain the next step, but Florian already touched on that topic. So you do the validation. And that is really doing a validation in the background, basically. So it will really validate all the metadata values, the newly generated values with your rules against the real target type object type definition. So that means it will validate if the attribute value is exceeding in terms of length, for example, or it meets the minimum length, or if you have mandatory attributes. So if they are missing mandatory attributes, and you can even do regular expression to do whatever validation you really want on the values, right? And then what Florian said is really important, because you can do that and you can like play around with that until you have really everything validated before you even touch your target system. And that really helps you. I mean, you don't need to do a big bang approach and then a rollback or something, right? With Migration Center, you do it step by step until you really have satisfying rules rules and then also results, and really the validated data. So at this point, you basically can say this is will really fit in the target into the target system in terms of metadata, right? Of course, there could be other technical reasons why an object cannot be imported. For example, technical connection issues, or other objects are missing or something like that. But in terms of metadata, you really save a lot of time and thus money, because you really make sure that the metadata is fine before you touch or try any kind of technical import at all, right? That really helpful. Okay, once the data is validated, we can close the mixet here and go to the importers. That looks very familiar or similar to the scanners. So I created my demo Documentum importer. I choose the job server again. I choose the repository, and I choose how to create the folders, which you will see in a second. So then I go to mixet, and here I just can assign validated mixsets. That's also important. Like, you cannot assign a mixset which is not completely processed, like it's not validated in an importer, because it really prevents to do any kind of mistake here and migrating a mixset which is being worked on at that moment and not even finished, right? So that's the way Migration Center makes sure that only validated documents can really be imported at all. Okay, once saved that configuration, I click on run, give it a description, and then we see a very similar history and progress like in the scanner. You have the history here down here, and you have the jobs panel here, where you can also arrange the windows again. And yeah, while it's being imported, we can have a look to the Documentum. So let me just refresh the cabinets. Right, so we have a new cabinet created, and we basically now migrated or are migrating the data from here in there, right? It's not two systems, it's two cabinets, but it would work similar for every kind of migration when you come from file system to Documentum or to OpenText or FileNet, or wherever you come from and wherever you go to. That's the process you would do with Migration Center in general in migrations. Okay, let's have a last look to our change here. So what I did is basically I changed, as I said, the order. So this project number and project name basically folder will be the second one, and before we have basically the document type folder in front of it. So we changed those both folders and the order. Right, and then it's getting imported, so we can have a refresh here. We see more and more files and folders will be created, and yeah, that's basically the demo. Let's have a last look maybe to our progress. So we are 87%. So I guess we are good in time, so we can let it run. And maybe a very last look to the migration set, because that's the overview you're working in mostly. So also here you will see, yeah, it's finished by now. You see we have all the total objects of 1,760. They are all imported, and we don't have any errors or any other things. So basically then that mixset is done, and you are finished with the work for that particular mixset with the scope of documents in it. Okay, so with that, I would hand over again to Florian.
Yeah, thank you, Mike, for the demo. Great. So let me share my screen again. So before we go into the Q&A session, I have some more information for you about our services. So we designed a broad set of essential service elements for our, let's say, customers for the migration service at FME. So, and usually the set consists of different kind of, let's say, packages. This could be the analyze and planning package. We do proof of concept. We help you with project management, communication, change management, etc., etc. We develop connectors, as I mentioned. We do, of course, maintenance support for our product. We do on-site or remote trainings for our product. We help you with the quality assurance and the validation documentation at the end of a migration project. So we can help you with monitoring and reporting during the migration if you have very huge migration. So that makes definitely sense to set up some monitoring and reporting processes. So we help you with the installation and configuration. Or, and this is also possible, you can also simply book the full service, so that means end-to-end migration services at FME. And we have also a couple of different kind of packages for you. Usually a migration, let's say, project looks like you see here on that slide. So it starts usually with the source and content analysis phase. So then we build within the project, we build the classification and mapping definition. So that means we define exactly how to map the context, the metadata from the source to the target system. Then this will be the basis for the migration concept. So here you decide what kind of approach you want to take. So it's a big bang, it's a delta migration approach. Is it a division by division or kind of wave migration? And this also will be include, of course, the whole planning and the project planning and stuff like that. So, and then we start with the migration preparation and the product configuration. So, and this is definitely something which we recommend to nearly all customers to do several dry runs. So to configure everything, to prepare everything based on the concept, and then do the first dry run, see if everything works as expected, and if not, so then you go into a kind of correction loop. You modify your migration concept maybe, or your configuration and transformation model. Do another dry run or test migration, and then if everything works as expected, you go into the product migration, and finally you have the test, the Q&A, and the documentation. So, and for this migration, let's say, approach in terms of services, we provide several packages. So first of all, you can simply, if you go from the bottom to the top, you can simply buy Migration Center to do just the migration. So this could include the product, trainings, and so on and so forth. But also you can book the empowerment service. This includes all components of the analysis and the review for the source system, the consulting service, the product training, and so on and so forth. Or simply you can book the whole implementation service. This means the execution of your migration concept and your migration plan, so including the QA and tests. And as I mentioned, so you can also book the end-to-end service. We provide this end-to-end service on a fixed price, time material, or migration as a service. So we introduced a couple of migration factories at our clients. So that means there's a dedicated team, which is a mix of internals and externals. So that means FME employees. Which, let's say, provides a team which can be booked by internal service units or internal units to execute a migration from, for example, a legacy system to Documentum. So that's the flexibility of our migration service, and it's really up to you what kind of elements you want to choose, just the product or some other elements of our service portfolio. So, and with that, so I will hand over back to Mark. So, and Mark will give us some additional information, and he will also open the Q&A session just in a minute.
All right. Thank you, Florian and Mike, for the presentation and the demo. As Florian just mentioned before we head over the Q&A session, let me just present you our websites. We have 2 services websites. One is for our main FME group Germany, fme.de, and then for the North American market, we have the fme-us.com, and then we have our dedicated product website, which is the main focus of this webinar, of course, which is migration-center.com. And on there, you find all the information you just received by Florian and Mike in more detail, and you can even request even more details. And on there, you find product features. You find some case studies from former customers, just like the one Florian already presented. There is a content migration blog on there with regular updates. You can take a look at our past webinars as webinar recordings. They are all for free. And we have implemented a so-called connector matrix in which you can choose your source system and your target system and then see the individual capabilities for your migration path. And last but not least, we offer a free evaluation copy, which offers you a chance of a 14-day trial for Migration Center, so you can test it in your own environment from your chosen migration path. And with that being said, that's our last slide. I would like to thank you for attending today. I hope to see you again soon in another webinar session or in a web form, as just mentioned. And I hope you have a good day. Thank you very much for attending. Bye-bye.
Thanks for your time. Goodbye.
Also, my side, thank you very much. Goodbye.